All right. My emotional response to tone policing. I love you, but I forbid you. This is a big one that I didn't really consider until more recently in my life. Looking into a lot more. Talked about spiritual bypassing in my first emotional response to her. Second season, I guess. Anyway, this one, I'll try to relate it to something, but for now I just want to talk about it. Tone policing. I love you, but I forbid you. It's a pretty cosmic, unenchanted thing. Pretty much saying that a person basically has no right to be themselves, or to be a person who can change, or to be a person who can demonstrate a reconfiguration. Simple as the different kind of controller layout in a video game. You change the configuration to fit you. And that can change, actually. Sometimes you won't stick with the same one, and that'll change. I only bring that up because I've noticed the I love you but I forbid you act is pretty self-aware about what's happened with my family members and what's happened with myself around the last year. Because I made the same problem happen too. I policed the tone of what happened in the last year about people that have come back from my past, thinking because I've changed now, the green lighting from before wouldn't have an effect anymore. What a very stupid move and a very inaccurate understanding of the representation I left on people for over 30 years. That's my emotional response to that. Dumb. But honest. I feel that after having that happen, I actually notice a lot more about what tone policing does. And has been doing with me for years. Coming back to the fact that I didn't drive a lot of places. I didn't go out of my way to reach out to people. Whether they were family, friends, whatever. I'm going to acknowledge that. But I'm not going to only crack open the egg. I'm going to actually come out of it. I'm not going to only just stay in the egg. I'm going to come out of that egg and understand tone policing on other people's levels. Meaning that, yes, that happened. That doesn't mean the reconfiguration now needs to have the same thing as I love you, but I forbid you act. The problem with the I forbid you part is that now it's lessening the value of our connections. And that's what I've learned. Asking for more things. Funny enough, asking for emotional things is bad for a lot of people. Asking for things that they wouldn't be doing in their own relationships that we acknowledge and we see and we talk about isn't enough. The graffiti behind me is pretty much the saying of what's happening this past year for me. So if you forbid me to do something, or if you, I'm going to let you do that. Issue with that too. Not very constructive relationship, whether a relationship, more personal and more, a lover versus a family member, whatever it is, versus a friend. If any of that connects to those kind of things, it's obviously not constructing things based on, hey, you know what, I want you to have your own language and everything. I want you to be able to express yourself in everything the way you want to. And if I don't have an answer for that, I'll figure it out and come back to you about it. Pretty much, it's not standing over somebody and making them have to explain it on my end. So the tone policing I'm talking about is actually about people that construct things in a way that are saying, I don't want to do that, I just want to manage you. I love you, but I forbid you. Now, that also means they're not going to, extraneously, that also means they're not going to add more to that for the relationship you're in with them. People constantly tell you they constantly love you to take away your power and agency. Whew. It's a big one. Sorry about the noises outside. Not my fault. Not my mouth. People constantly tell you they constantly love you to take away your power and agency. So if a person loves you, no problem there. And I think that's the thing about what I learned in the last 30 years. That just saying love, love, love constantly doesn't necessarily mean a person actually is in love with who you are. Maybe they weren't in love in the idea of having you if you're their child. Maybe they're not in love with the idea of being a friend to you unless they get something out of you. Maybe they're not in love with you as a lover unless you're giving them the dick game. Or how's the wallet? How's that cash flow? They need you to need their love. Ooh, that's brutal. That's like Batman just killing everybody just for the sake of killing them. Attacking everybody just for the sake of it. Not having lost his parents and just doing that out of revenge, in the same exact kind of revenge, without having that lost, attracting them to want to do that. They need you to need their love. And that's the biggest problem right there. The assurance, the reassurance of what nobody else wants from them. Because a person needs you to need their love because it's not needed anywhere. You know? And that's an important part to remember. It's not pleasant, but it is a reality of it. That's why I know the difference of what I talked about the other time in my ER, that what George Lucas said was important. It's not about the pleasures you're going to get. Yeah, those are going to be the highest, but the joys and how you consistently can stay there. Well, you can stay there because you actually consistently love in action, not in just being needed. Not being needed for that love, which, again, is a hazardous conversation to have. But you know what? I haven't had it yet, actually. Nobody's actually wanted to continue down to that path of the conversation. So it's kind of at a loss for words at the moment. When I get there, I'll have another emotional response for that. Be unapologetic about removing people in your life who seek to stay between you and your abundance destiny. Very true. The assurance of what I said before that is the problem. If they need you to need their love, they're going to need you for something for that, obviously. It's not just they're going to need you to need their love. It's actually, there's a lot more interconnected with that. What you do for their life will make you be able to not have your abundance and destiny in your life. Because you literally have to be unapologetic about them not sacrificing for their love that they define. Which, again, I can go back to Paula Hunter. That her definition of love includes abuse. So if your definition of something includes both, includes a different scope of what love is to, let's say, myself, then already you have a problem of it. How can you encourage that same treatment when the other person doesn't have that? Even if they're your child, even if they're your friend, even if they're your lover. If you know you are separated with that construction of love, what the fuck? Excuse it again. But that shows how much you can have abundance, and you're taking away someone else's abundance by only allowing your love to be needed. So that's why you have to be unapologetic and remove people in your life. It's emotional. It ain't fun. And the only thing that makes it fun is that the abundance comes out. What we want to accomplish comes out as individuals. So of course everyone's going to look at it and go, I don't know if you're going to be sad about this or happy about this. Okay, but that doesn't matter right now. The matter is, are we going to get further in this conversation? And that's why I said when I get to those conversations, I'll come back with an emotional response, because finally someone will want to discuss these things that have done these things. At this moment, the only person that has is me. And that's what I'm talking about. I didn't remove people, and I became such a slanted individual about what I wanted because I couldn't stand on my own feet about situations that were happening to me. If they are not making you happy, but it's getting in the way of your happiness, they getting cut. Well, you have to pay attention to those qualities as individuals. The writing is on the wall, I guess, behind me. That's what I'm learning in this last year. The subtleties, the body language, what I talked about the other night with Sebastian and Jax, which was sharing and letting others share, but not only doing that, paying attention when you share and what the other person is showing while listening, what they're going to be responding with, how they're going to be responding while you're sharing. Because if you're only sharing to share, I did that for a long time, then that's all you'll be doing. And you're not going to connect to the things that are actually happening while you're sharing. So tone policing. Going to be a few minutes of just this. I was told to tone police. Funny thing is, by people that have said fuck the police. So I'm a little confused. Only because how can you actually believe that authority shouldn't have that power and be able to create that sort of social injustice when personal injustices are happening all the time? When you're tone policing your family members, your friends, your lovers. And that's what you're doing. You're saying, I love you, but I forbid you. And it comes down to the power attack. It comes down to the ego trip, the narcissist, any of those things. But the biggest problem with that conversation, as Red Table Talk Sid, is that a narcissist is not going to admit they're a narcissist. And that's even known throughout history of narcissism. No one's going to admit those things. And that's why I said I'll have those conversations when somebody wants to admit that, and we'll talk about it. The problem with that is now I'm going to lose my power if I admit that I'm doing this. Well, I've lost all my power then because I'm admitting what I did. And I don't feel like I lost my power. I feel like I gained my power. That's the biggest issue that I've noticed between talking about something deeper, is that the tone policing actually equates to, I don't want to discuss this because I want to keep the power of what I'm doing. But what if that power is negative? I've been told that there's levels of toxicity. Only problem with that, and I will say this, two things. One, if you're not talking to the toxicity and saying, do not do that toxicity. This is what's happening when you do this toxicity, and you explain the referendum of not only the side of just saying you're wrong, but saying that this is what you're doing, this is why you're doing it, I could understand, but also look at what's happening here. Look at the other side of what you're doing and understand it. And I think, like the iPhone says, move further away. People move further away when they don't want to talk about those things. And I think that's a big one right there. People really have an issue with entrenching themselves in what matters in a situation like the emotions that we hold deeply inside us. But that's the biggest issue right there. The conversation doesn't lead to a deeper talk of emotion. Hey, you know what? If you feel all these things, that's a tone police. I want to actually hear you talk about deeper things. I don't give a fuck about you love me, but you want to forbid me for something. Well, then the conversation can't be had any deeper because now you're taking away the point of the conversation. The point of the conversation is to get deeper in there, into what this discussion is about. And I think that's what I learned, that there's so many that are... There's so much in tone policing that just basically says, I'm not going to discuss this. I don't need to discuss this. That isn't my discussion. That isn't my problem. Let someone else have that problem. I guess, as I'm saying this is what my emotions are going through at the moment. This is going to go on a lot further, but this is my in-between of in between the entertainment stuff. Thank you. Love you.